On today's episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, the wide receiver room has some new faces, but is it time to really consider bringing back Stefon Diggs and DeMeco Ryans, a man of his words, while this new roster isn't surprising?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Battle Red Nation? Welcome to today's episode. I'm John Hickman. That's Brian Big Stars Barfield. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode, we will be diving into our favorite free agency edition. That's going to be fun. I think it's an underrated name there that a lot of people ain't really looking into, Sarge. DeMeco Ryans, a man of his words. He's told us what he's wanted, and the Texans are actively making changes to the roster. We'll open up today's show looking at Stefon Diggs. You hit me over the weekend and say, hey, man, there's a video out. Stefon looks good, and maybe time to strongly consider bringing him back. So we'll dive into that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So make sure you check out FanDuel. College basketball is popping right now. Big Sarge.
What's going on, John Hickman? Greetings and salutations. Or should I just say, twin? What's up, twin?
We got the Rockets going. Hey, shout out to the Rockets.
Winning streak.
Shout out to the Rockets. I know y'all are here.
Wait. 6-game winning streak.
Get it right.
5-0 during this 6-game homestand.
Yeah, they doing good, man. Make sure you guys check out Locked On Rockets. But you guys are here to talk Texans, and that's what we're going to dive into. Braxton Berrios, Justin Watson, Christian Kirk is now a Houston Texan. The Houston Texans have invested in their wide receiver room. Not a lot of flashy names, not a lot of spending in that room so far. They reworked the deal with Christian Kirk to save them, I think, roughly $12 million, so they still have the money to go out there and make a move, make a splash. Yeah, but should that splash be with Stefon Diggs, who this team has a lot of relationship with? Should he come back?
But John, I'm gonna say it like this, and I know we're gonna talk about our favorite free agents, and I think I got one that's gonna surprise you as well later on in the show. But I'm gonna be honest with you before we start talking about Stefon Diggs, and I'm looking around and I'm looking at what the Houston Texans did, and I don't know, John, if you watch the Summer Olympics. And if you do watch the Summer Olympics, do you watch the diving competition?
I do not. The only Olympics I'm watching is when Steph Curry was putting them boys to sleep last year.
So in the diving competitions, right? Like when they do the springboard, when they do the high dive, all that, the thing that you get credit for is the less splash. So your entry into the pool, you're supposed to go bloop, you know what I'm saying? They supposed to be, a big splash, just that another.
So
right?
Not the whale jokes they used to play on the big boys back when we was kids. Not
exactly.
Okay.
Right, exactly. So the reason why I'm prefacing what I'm saying is because in diving, not making a big splash is cool. In the NFL, no, you better jump in that thing like you doing like you 350 pounds doing a cannonball. Hey, John, what was the guy that used to play for? That came from the Patriots. Vince Wilfork when he wore them overalls.
Yeah,
you need Vince Wilfork to have on those overalls and jump into the pool and make that type of splash. He could jump from the side of the bank for that, John. But the reason why I say all that is to say this: we're talking about Stefon Diggs. I think either over the weekend or right before the weekend started, there was a video of Stefon Diggs running routes. And it looked good because the only videos that we had really been seeing is Stefon Diggs just training. Stefon Diggs just in the weight room. Stefon Diggs learning to get his stability back. But now we're actually seeing him running the routes and doing what you would expect a wide receiver to be doing at this time. And especially coming off the injury that he had and at the age that he is, John. He's 31 going on 32 years old in November. And so you want to see, okay, so where are you really? And I know that sometimes these videos are edited, but you can't edit route running. So you're watching, and you're saying to yourself, if I'm Nick Caserio, if I'm DeMeco Ryans, if I'm Nick Caley, the offense coordinator for the Houston Texans, I'm saying, well, we didn't get Devontae Adams. We didn't get DK Metcalf. We didn't get Cooper Kupp. I mean, the only other player that's out there that's available is a Stefon Diggs. We've talked a lot about what the free agency wide receiver market looked like this year. So it's like the only person out there is Stefon Diggs. All right, let me see. Okay. Oh, he didn't put up a little video on IG. All right. And this is in March. You know, we give him the proper time to continue to heal and continue to get himself better, and then he can come into training camp, and then maybe we'll be he'll be able to add on to that. So, John, I'm going to say this. I would love to see Stefon Diggs back with the Houston Texans. I would love to see the leadership that he's able to bring into that wide receiver room, add that, with what they already have with the Nico Collins. I just don't know what his price tag is. And I think that's the holdup. I think that's the holdup for everything, is that no one really knows how many years he wants and how much money he wants. And so, John, if I'm looking at that video and I'm seeing, okay, he's back to running, he's not running full speed, but he is back to running, I am doing my due diligence with Diggs.
I'm glad you said that last part about the contract. So there's a couple things I want to respond to. We also have seen video of Stefon Diggs in Paris at the fashion show, so let's not leave that out.
And the rodeo.
Can't edit route running. Well, you're right, and that's probably why All-American the show wasn't as good as it should have been, because we all knew them were real football players. But the third thing, okay, what is he looking for? I think a blessing in disguise happened over the weekend for the Houston Texans. Cooper Kupp got signed.
Yeah.
3-year deal, $45 million. Last year, Stefon was making, what was it, 18.5? Something along those lines. And as you mentioned, we've talked about it. Hey, man, what are they going to pay Stefon Diggs if they want to bring him back? What does that interest look like financially, right? And we had the show with Jonathan over the weekend. For the Friday show, I talked about the future and finances of this football team when I mentioned Laremy Tunsil. But future-wise and finance-wise, I mean, do we think 3 years, $45 million is a fair deal for Stefon Diggs, a player who has chemistry with your quarterback and C.J. Stroud, a player who is very well renowned and loved in his locker room? They already lost a guy that they loved in the locker room in Laremy Tunsil. Stefon could come back in and maybe play a little bit of that role. But overall, I think when you look at how the Cooper Kupp injury, not tearing his ACL, but the last couple of seasons he's been injury riddled, an older wide receiver. We all know his best days are behind him, but can he come in and contribute to an offense? Can he come in and be a team's clear number two? I think so, and I think that may be the same for Stefon Diggs, how this wide receiver room is currently put together. So I will look at the Cooper Kupp deal with Houston having a way out that third year. And
that's
I think
what I was going to say, John.
Yeah, that makes the best sense for Houston right now.
I was just going to, and that's why I want to throw that in real quick to ask you to ask you, if you get that the first 2 years guaranteed with a team option in year 3, is that what you would do?
Absolutely. And contracts, whether it be the NBA or NFL, it's always kind of difficult to determine how teams can wiggle their way out. But I think how the Texans are going about putting this roster together right now, making the changes, which we'll get into with DeMeco keeping his word. We know this roster the wide receiver unit ain't where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Right. And as they are currently put together, the feeling is wait on the draft. Yeah. But you run the risk of missing out on some guys. You run the risk of maybe having to trade up, which I think helps Houston right now, because in the trade for Laremy Tunsil, they got an additional mid-round pick that they could potentially use to trade up in the first round if they want to. But do you rather keep that pick and maybe utilize it for something else? So Diggs would do a lot. Am I big on bringing Diggs back? No. Are there guys out there that I think could bring the same impact to this team? The only guy I can think of right now is Keenan Allen. That's available. That's the only guy, right? And healthy Keenan, he can give you about 800 yards. Is that Stefon's ceiling? I don't know. I think Stefon can still give you between 9 and 11 if he's healthy coming into the season. Monetary is where it matters, and I think that Cooper Kupp deal really did help Houston out over the weekend.
So, and John, I just want to say this. I mean, and the crazy part about it is if you look at all these wide receivers that were available, the majority of them were what?
Old.
And they were either
30,
old
31,
or they were.
32.
I think that when we look at the upper echelon and what we consider the upper echelon in this year, I think DK Metcalf was probably like the youngest one when you're looking at of
Around
all of them.
27 or 27,
Yeah,
28,
27.
still
Yeah.
in his 20s,
So
and he got the extension, the
right.
major extension.
And so you're looking, like we said, we're looking at Devontae Adams. He's old. Metcalf wasn't old. Cooper Kupp, old and injury riddled. And Stefon Diggs be 32. This year he'll turn 32 during the season. And now, John, I'm looking right now and I'm like, John, Keenan Allen getting ready to turn 33 years old. I mean, if he gets you 80 yards in the game, you doing well. And what are you bringing him in on a 1-year deal? Are you bringing him in? Is he coming in to be like the receiver to help out with the? Is he going to be a passing game coordinator assistant or something? Like, what are you bringing Keenan Allen in to do, John? If I'm a defensive coordinator and I see Keenan Allen on the other side, I may pick up one of my defensive tackles and say, "Hey, come on, go, Keenan." I know that sounds so disrespectful, but John, listen, I like Keenan Allen. I think that Keenan Allen has had a very good, serviceable in NFL career. I don't think he has anything left in the tank for a contending championship team as you're trying to build with the Houston Texans.
I agree. And to the Cooper Kupp point, he's also 31. He'll be 32 when the season starts. Now we got to dive into DeMeco Ryans being a man of his word. The wide receiver unit was a position of need. He mentioned it, and they went out there and made some changes. So we'll dive into that and more on today's show. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, we all got wives and girlfriends. Hey, can I use your card? Amazon, and entertainment. It is easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money, isn't just a budgeting app. It's complete financial commanding center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, listen, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery and just different apps that I don't even really use. They help me save and budget and move better. Managing money with your partner is also smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control over your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. And as we talk about saving money, how about making it exciting using your money? Starts with FanDuel, right? College hoops is here, March Madness. Shout out to Future. And FanDuel is giving you a chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters, Cinderella stories, and who's cutting down the nets. You got your eye on a few underdogs this year? Use FanDuel. They make it easy to get back in with that underdog, with that Cinderella. Spreads, totals, game props. FanDuel's got you covered. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around. So just visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action happening all tournament long. Welcome back, Battle Red Nation. We continue this show talking about the Houston Texans. DeMeco Ryans, man of his word. What am I talking about? On February 25th, DeMeco Ryans, press conference, he said something that really caught my attention. We really didn't dive into it as much as we should, but now that things have transpired, we can get into it some. Year 3, he's talking about year 3. He said, year 3 for myself and Nick working together, it's been seamless. It's easy because we see football the same. We know the type of players that we want on our team. We know the mindset that we're looking for in players is guys who have that relentless mindset, guys who love football, right? Mm-hmm. He told us what he wants from his offensive line unit and how he wants that room to look. The Texans traded Laremy Tunsil, Kenyon Green, released Shaq Mason. Mentioned how the wide receiver position is an area of emphasis. traded for Christian Kirk, signed insurance policies in Braxton Berrios and Justin Watson. And I think no disrespect to those two men, but I think right now they are insurance policies for this team. When you look at the overall tone of where I think DeMeco Ryans has been coming from all offseason, for me, Sarge, it comes off as I'm not going to let what happened last year hold us back. That's first and foremost. And I think that there were so many things that DeMeco Ryans didn't like last year from an overall team perspective. A lot of people like to put he's a defensive-minded coach. He's only going to worry about the defense. I think that's a box and a limitation that people have put on DeMeco Ryans. He is a coach. And because he's a defensive coordinator, and because his defense has been good, and because of the struggles of the offense, a lot of people have felt like he's not worried about their side. Let me say it right now. Cut that out. Right? So I think that he's going to go come into this year looking to upgrade all around. I think that will speed up the process of DeMeco Ryans becoming the ultimate overseer of a football coach once he fixes the issues that held this team back, which has been offensive production and cleaning up back-end coverage. For you, Sarge, and you've been around DeMeco Ryans since he got to Houston. Does it always seem like he follows through with what he's looking for and what he says?
Listen, let me tell you something, John. It's funny because you use the quote that you use from, to start this segment is actually the question that I asked him at the NFL. I think that was at the NFL scouting combine is when I asked him about what does year 3 look like for him and Nick Caserio. And to answer your question, yeah, he isn't somebody that's just going to give lip service. He ain't just up there, at these press conferences saying, what he is and what he ain't going to do, and then go and does the opposite. If he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. If he says that he wants, something to look a certain way, that means he wants it to look a certain way, and he's going to do whatever he can to make sure that it looks a certain way. And I think that's where the Houston Texans organization was able to hit on a head coach like DeMeco Ryans, because he always looks at things from two perspectives. Now, John, there's been times where teams have hired former NFL players, right? And some of those NFL players was just on rosters, right? And I'm not taking anything away, so I don't want anybody to think that I'm taking shots at former NFL players, because in order to reach the NFL, you got to have some type of talent. You got to be, good somewhere. And so it's just what you do in your NFL career sometimes that, the way that people perceive it or the way that people look at it. So sometimes you get these, these former backup quarterbacks who, weren't good in the NFL, but are like great offensive coordinators, right? And so you look at a player like DeMeco Ryans, who had a very good NFL career, and then he leaves the NFL and goes and becomes a defensive coordinator, something that he's really good at from the middle linebacker position, what many consider the quarterback of the defense. And then he leaves from that defensive coordinator position, and then he becomes an NFL head coach. But now you have a former player who's played at the highest level, who everybody respected. His nickname was Captain, and now he is your head coach. And so he's one of those guys that he sees it from both angles. And that's why when he makes the type of sayings, when he makes the type of statements that he makes, he means that. Now, before I jump into with DeMeco learning on the job, the real reason I asked him about him and Nick working together is because before DeMeco got here, just look at some of the draft picks that Nick made. Just look at some of the draft picks that Nick made that didn't always pan out, right? There's some players that
got to Houston 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Nico panned out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Man, 2022.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and go. Yeah, 2022. That's when
Kenyon and Green. Christian Harris has been up and down, but I like where you're going with it. Yeah.
And then 2023, you get DeMeco Ryans here. And of course, I don't feel like they could have went wrong with either quarterback that they took. And I know that we're looking at CJ and we're looking at Bryce right now. And of course, CJ is head and shoulders above, but who's to say that if Bryce wasn't put in that situation, he wouldn't have been. So all I'm saying is that, they hit on CJ for sure. And then they do whatever was necessary to do what? to bring in Will Anderson Jr.
Yeah.
And then they go and they get a Tank Dell. And then they go and they get a player, John, that's going to be better than some people think. And some people's that's not giving them full credit just yet, but you can see it in a Henry To'oTo'o.
Yeah.
And so
listen, and listen, I want to give you credit. You have been a fan of his. I'm not going to necessarily say since day one, but let me say day one of last year when hey man, listen, Henry is, and he's gotten the reps and he's gotten opportunities to get better. And I mean, Henry's one of those guys. I like that.
Yeah, and so you look at then the next year they hit on Kamar Lasser and they hit on Kalen Bullock.
Yeah.
And so I say all that to say that, in the first 2 years, DeMeco has been learning on the job. Should he have gotten rid of Chris Strausser? Of course he should have. Yeah. That's the former offensive line coach. Should he maybe have taken some of the duties away from Bobby Slowick? Yeah, you could see that, right? But those are the things that you learn in your first 2 years on the job. Those are the type of things that as you're on the job, you're learning more and more and more. And I think that you've heard me say this before, and you may have heard other people say this before. Like, I don't fully evaluate a rookie quarterback until year 3, because you get in, you're a rookie, nobody's expecting you. Year 2, they adjust to you, and now you got to see how you handle adversity. Then year 3, you combine year 1 and you combine year 2, you put them together, and then you see what you have. I'm doing the exact same thing with DeMeco Ryans. I want to see in year 3. I want to see in year 3. And John, just like you brought up those things real quickly, about the offensive line, about the wide receivers and things like that. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to pass it back to you. He said he only wanted one voice in that offensive line room. He made that very clear. And now there's only one voice in that offensive line room. He's making sure that year 3 is going to that ship ain't gonna have it's not gonna deter. It ain't gonna stop. It's gonna keep moving.
Yeah, and you know what? Have you heard from CJ Stroud this offseason?
I have not.
You know who in the most respectful of and subtle ways called his quarterback out and said we need for him to be better? DeMeco. And so you look at being a man of his word. That also goes to the people he works with.
Yep.
Hey, I want this, and this is why. Okay, you know what? From a Nick Caserio perspective, hey, I'm with it. We seamlessly working together, right? From a quarterback perspective, you're right, Coach. I wasn't all the best, right? I can go out there and be better, especially after last year going on a world tour, which, again, he was a young quarterback. Nobody's mad at him about that. But I think the overall feeling is DeMeco keeping his words does – okay, for one thing for Houston before we close out, it gives Houston some balls, man. It makes them a tougher franchise. That's number one. Number 2, he's a smart mind, working with other smart minds. So you know exactly what needs to be done. And I think for this year, it ain't no loyalty. It's on me to get this team over the hump. As a player, he probably felt that way. As a coach, he feels that way. It's on me to get this team over the hump and to show you guys how much DeMeco Ryans knew he had to make changes. Listen to this.
For me, everything is on the table when it comes to it has to get fixed.
Where's your baseline Chris Strausser right now and being able to turn things around?
Yeah, like I said, when it comes to it, I know how we're coached, what we're asking to be done, and it's not showing up on the tape. So it's not just one person; it's the entire thing. So it's just the entire offense from the top to the bottom. We have to get it cleaned up, not one person or one thing, but multiple things, multiple issues that we have to get collectively. We have to get it fixed.
Who would have known after that your star left tackle would be traded? Who would have known? He told us in plain sight. Now we got to talk about our favorite free agency. It's funny, right? Who would have thought?
Wait. Real quick. Wait. Larry Batonso, I'm on your bumper.
We got free agency, our favorite additions coming up next. More Locked On Texans. Welcome back in, Locked On Texan listeners and viewers. We are now transitioning to our favorite free agency additions to this team. Sarge, Houston had the chance to bring back Mario Edwards. I love that. Houston had the opportunity to, retain some of their guys, Darray, but they've also had an opportunity to go outside of the organization and, again, bring in some insurance policies. I don't think Houston really had good insurance policies last year for their wide receiver room. So I did like those signings, and those signings are also two guys that could be cut after training camp. So no big deal. All right, but they brought in some guys. Who has been your favorite to this point?
All right, John, hold on, because I know that there's one that I think that we both have. And what I would like to do, right, and this is unprecedented, but I want to defer back to you real quickly. I would like to, you know how they do on the floor, even though it's my time, I would like to give my time to Mr. Hickman. Mr. Hickman, will you please go first so I won't step on your toes?
Hey, listen, man, you know what? I think a lot of people maybe overlooked the Darrell Taylor edition for Houston.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, he was a guy that
the edge rusher from Chicago.
Edge rusher from Chicago. One season he had 9.5 sacks overall, I think, in his career in 4 years. He's had nearly 30 sacks altogether. He's a guy that fluid pass rusher, very bendy, great use of hands. For all of our PFF and grade lovers out there, right? Taylor ranked top 40 in pass rushing grades out of nearly 200 edge rushers or pass rushers altogether. Now, he isn't the greatest defender against the run. Obviously, he's a weapon on third downs or passing downs altogether. And I will say this, he plays the play action fairly well. Do I think he may spell the end of DeMeco Autry? I'm not sure. As we know, cutting Autry frees up $9 million in cap space. Again, we talked about bringing back Stefon Diggs. That the Houston Texans will need the funds to do so if they choose to. But he isn't an inside guy. Houston could look to maybe replace the inside impact DeMeco Autry brings through the draft. That's been a talk of the town right now. They have to draft a D tackle. Don't think that they've done so under DeMeco Ryans to this point, at least not early rounds. But I like what Taylor can bring as an obvious down pass rusher. I like the fact that they brought back Derek Barnett, which is great. But could they move on from Barnett for a younger guy that can give you some of the same production and maybe even more? Up in the air with what Danielle Hunter's future look like. We know he's under contract this year. He wants the contract extension. Could you maybe supplement maybe lesser value for a cheaper contract for a guy that could maybe still give you some, some good playing snaps? I'm not sure, but I like Taylor's coming to Houston.
John, let me say this before I answer. I was not expecting that. That's the first thing that I wasn't expecting. And two, like I said, before I give my answer, I want people to realize this, right? I want people to realize this. This is something that I think that a lot of Houston Texans fans and even some of the people in the media may need to realize is that, last year, Nick Caserio took the chance. He went all out and he brought in some big name free agents. He went out and he got some very good talent for this Houston Texans team. And some of it panned out, some of it didn't. We had lost some of the players due to injuries, and it just didn't work out to be able to get them over that hump and past that divisional round. I don't think that people should have on 2024 glasses looking at the Houston Texans and the free agents that they're going out and that they're going to get. And I'm not trying to give them a pass, but right now, John, there isn't a lot of big name talent out there that's available for the Houston Texans. And in order to get them, you're going to have to give up a lot of draft capital. You're going to have to you may have to give up draft capital players, and you're definitely going to have to pay them on top of the bag that you're going to have to give to your players on your own team. And so I want people to realize there's not going to be the same free agency. It's not the same free agency market that everybody else is expecting like last year. There was a big splash last year. So
yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. But with that being said, John, I love the fact that they added C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I love the fact that they added Christian Kirk. I love the fact that they brought back a locker room guy in Sheldon Rankins. That's under the
radar. Yeah,
exactly.
And got him on a good deal. I think 1 year, one year up to $7 million.
I like Braxton Berrios. I like what he's gonna do on the special team, and you know what I'm saying, man. Shout out to Chris Boyd, man. I understand. Somebody got to be the sacrificial lamb. But John, if I'm not mistaken, the Houston Texans brought in a wide receiver that they got from the Kansas City Chiefs and Justin Watson, right?
Justin Watson, yeah.
Justin Watson, 6 foot.
For this whole time, I thought he was a tight end. I'm sorry. I thought they had got another one up out of there. I'm sorry, y'all.
Right. But John, going back and watching, he didn't have a lot of snaps. He was limited. And I'm looking at his stats right now. Throughout his career, he had 22 receptions, 289 yards, 13.1 receiving yard average, 2 touchdowns. His longest reception was 49 yards. But sometimes you look at those type of players, John, and you realize that you may have found you something that could work for your team. I don't think that Justin Watson is going to come in and be that number 2 wide receiver that the Houston Texans may be looking for. But I think that you add him with some of the things that you already have, and you're giving him an opportunity. I don't think that he got the opportunity that he really, really maybe, earned or deserved. I don't know, because I don't cover the Kansas City Chiefs. But, just looking at him and looking at his potential, I think that what the Houston Texans looked at was his potential. And so I'm not expecting him to come in and be 1,000-yard wide receiver, but I do, expect him to come in, learn this Nick Caley offense of whatever it's going to be when it's implemented, but getting familiar with CJ Stroud. And if you're open, CJ is going to find you. And if what they've done, is starting to try to revamp that offensive line and what they're going to get in the draft, I think that Justin Watson will be someone that could help the Houston Texans. And just like you said at the beginning of the show, that insurance plan, that insurance plan that they need.
And that's a good insurance plan to have. I mean, it's not oh my goodness, we got to make or break it with Justin Watson. That's not going to be the case.
Yeah, for sure.
Somebody in the draft that's going to be able to bring more than Justin Watson. But you can't say that Justin Watson ain't been a part of a championship team.
Hey, look,
and
just real quick, I was gonna say, and I mean, John, I've said this till I'm blue in the face, and you see how dark I am. You know how hard it is for me to turn blue. John, I will not sleep on John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson.
No, and it's not about sleeping on them. For me, it's not.
Yeah.
Right. And I've been extremely critical of both of those guys, and maybe more so, I've been more fair to John Mechie than Xavier Hutchinson. That's been documented. But again, when I look at the contracts of Berrios and Watson, Berrios 2-year deal, Watson had a very, very cheap deal. You got a guy coming over from Kansas City that's been a part of a championship team and knows what it takes and understands, like, okay, for Houston, y'all at the wide receiver position, y'all did not block well for screens last year. In Kansas City, that's what we did well, right? And so what he could give, we've seen vets signed all the time and cut before the regular season. But then we've heard some of those younger players mention those vets about some of the things that they were able to help them get better at. And he may not see the field for Houston. He may just be a preseason body. But is there value in that for a team that ain't never been to the conference championship? Absolutely. So I'm not mad at that. Justin Watson and Braxton Berrios, I think Berrios would be a good addition to this special team unit, who never really had a full-time punt returner and kick returner. It seemed like there was always ups and downs. Hopefully that's an area where I can see Damian Pierce taking over, because I would love that for him. But he has some value that he can add. And again, Houston just freed up $12 million in cap space with Christian Kirk getting that deal restructured. Yeah, they could free up some more. The moves are not done. This is week 1 of free agency. And I think for Houston to come in and kind of just clean up some things, they did good.
So what you're saying is that they may have the amount of money needed and the draft capital to make a trade for a wide receiver. Nah, I'm just saying.
Hey, you know what else? I forgot to mention this. DeMeco Ryans been a man of his word. Y'all remember when I brought up that Jahmyr Gibbs point?
Yeah.
They got another mid-round pick. Could that be for the best running back on the board at that time to get his team a different offensive weapon? I don't know. I'm just saying he's been telling us what he want to do, so I can see them doing it.
Scatterbo.
Oh, my goodness. Thank y'all for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans. I think he runs a 4.8. Faster than me, of course, but I don't want that for these Texans. But y'all follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texans. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. And also make sure that you are subscribed, you're liking, and always commenting on the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube.
And make sure you follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with the Z at the end.
Until next time, ladies and gents, peace.